Hi, I'm Arthur, and this is not a part of the 20-part series I'm currently doing involving fan-favorite successor chapters, but I am covering a successor chapter one particular fan has been requesting for a while now. Like, if you go into the comment section of most of my videos, every day for the last 2 months, there has been a legendary sword. I won't put them on blast, but an individual who has been asking every day for 2 months, or a little over 2 months, has been asking me to cover a specific chapter. And that specific chapter is the Red Scorpions. So this video is dedicated to you. You know who you are, and I see you, as I tend to read most of the comments that come in, or at least glance at the most common ones. I like seeing the people who are active, and thus I do this from time to time. Oh, and also, Skaven video, or videos soon, as I'm actually super interested in covering them since AOS 4.0 came out. So, Skaven guy in the comments, I see you. I goddamn see you. I just might do something weird with it. So yeah, we will be covering the Red Scorpions, a chapter of Space Marines with an uncomfortably long service record tied almost exclusively to Forge World products, which is likely the reason why not a lot of you have probably heard of them. They are the perfect obscure chapter with a lot of wacky lore. But before we get into it, let's divide the video into 3 parts like I like doing. Part 1, the chapter itself, what are they like? Part 2, what have they done? And Part 3, where are they now, and some final thoughts. Make sense? Hell yeah. Let's get into it. Well, but before we do, I want to say, hey, if you aren't subscribed, you should be. I upload a lot, and all of it's pretty high quality. And I'm also trying to selfishly hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. It's a bit of a long shot. We still have about like 4 or 5 months left in the year, so help a bonehead out. Let's see if we can do something weird. Okay? Cool, for real this time. Let's talk about the Red Scorpions, a chapter that can probably consider obsessive-compulsive disorder as a gene flaw, as they have an obsession with gene purity and cleanliness. It's kind of a running meme with me that there is this, like, group of 5 or so Space Marine chapters that I refer to as the Kings of Racism. They are a group of Space Marine chapters not really linked with each other in any way, shape, or form. The only thing binding them together is they have comedic levels of xenophobia that's almost similar in scale to each other. The chapters are the Nova Marines, the Marines Malevolent, the Iron Lords, Mikhail Fabian of the Ultramarines 3rd Company. I know he's not a chapter, he just has the hatred of one full chapter. And probably the most xenophobic of them all, the Red Scorpions. Though I'd say they are tied with the Nova Marines as they both have xenophobia-related gene curses. The Red Scorpions are so xenophobic that the later stages of their Marines' life cycle usually has them be a little bit twitchy around other Space Marines of a different chapter, and sometimes even in their own chapter. They see them as unclean. The Red Scorpions are very strict to adhere to the Codex Astartes, as well as the religious doctrines of the Imperial Creed. And because of this, they buy into the hype of being the angels descended from the Emperor himself. This causes them to have one of the purest, if not the purest, gene seed in the setting. It is so pure that they don't even know who their gene sire is from testing. It has absolutely no gene markers of the Primarch. It is like generic gene seed with no brand attached to it, which leads them to be more or less an incredibly stable and reliable chapter, as well as a pure one that has an unhealthy obsession with maintaining its purity, I mind you, but still a very stable chapter nonetheless. They distrust every other branch of the Imperial military and assume that everyone is a traitor just waiting for them to let their guard down for them to strike. Though this being said, they actually are fiercely loyal. They will work with anyone if it is to further the will of the Emperor, no matter who it is. They will just show disgust if it's anything other than like another Space Marine chapter, and even then it's kind of iffy depending on the chapter. They strictly adhere to the Codex Astartes to the point of it almost not being practical. Like, they tend to consult the book at every occurrence, which can slow them down a little bit in the long run, which is interesting. The last two things to understand is that they have an overabundance of apothecaries, which is stated in the Codex Astartes to be very important to have, and it's likely the reason why they have such pure and unmutated gene seed. And their second in command alongside that is also the chief apothecary of the chapter. And the second thing I want to bring up is they have almost perfect delegatory abilities, being able to command and actually lead massive amounts of troops, even if it isn't their own army under their command structure. This will make sense in like 2 minutes. Give me a sec. So with that all being said, let's get to what they've done. A bit of a brief discussion of their history, as I'm not going to be going too in depth on them, because I'm studying topics that they're involved in, and I'm not even nearly as deep into it as I want to be. But the big thing is, holy shit, they're a part of goddamn every big battle that's happened in the last couple thousand years. Like, the most major ones, the War for Armageddon, the Siege of Vrax, the Badab War, they've been there, and they've been significant forces in all three wars. To focus in on Vrax and the Badab War, they were one of the key winning factors of Vrax before, the Grey Knights showed up and did their thing. But even if you exclude Vrax, they were one of the key features of the Loyalist Marines in the Badab War, as they were the head of the delegatory forces in there to control all of the other chapters and military forces and make sure that they were all organized while partaking in the bloody melee and making sure that Huron got deaded at some point. They have such a long-standing and exemplary history of fighting that they genuinely have an unmatched level of effect on the setting that no one knows about. Like, you know the Land Raider Helios? I know it's in Legends now, but you can't play it, but you know it? Yeah, they invented that. They just needed a Land Raider that could do whirlwind things, so they just made a Land Raider with a whirlwind launcher on the top. Kind of crazy, right? But my favorite part of their history is when they got their gene seed stolen by the piratical faction of the Flawless Host, one of my favorite Chaos war bands of all time, and in the process, the Flawless Host had a bit of a strong victory against a small fleet of Red Scorpions, killing quite a lot of them. The current reigning chapter master decided he was going to dedicate his entire chapter to fuck slamming the Flawless Host against a wall until the drywall cracked, which he did, pulling every single individual company and battle squad out of combat in order to fight the Flawless Host. And the Flawless Host wore vengeance upon them afterwards, of course, because they lost, because it's an entire chapter of Space Marines, and it ended about as well as you'd think. But regardless, let's get into the final section of this video and ask, where are they now? Literally just doing what they normally do and killing heretics and people that don't really look human enough by their standards, at least. There actually isn't much lore to them in the modern day, if my research is correct, and that's because of a few reasons. For one, they are a bit of an obscure chapter, so like most other obscure chapters, they tend to get overlooked. And secondly, you have the main reason, which is they are the Forge World chapter. For those who are new or didn't know, Games Workshop is the main site you can buy Warhammer miniatures from, but it wasn't the only one for a while. Basically, you could go to the resin-only specialist artisanal store known as Forge World and buy overly expensive new kits for games like the Horus Heresy or upgrade kits for 40k, which is where the Red Scorpions kinda laid their head to rest. The Siege of Vrax was very much a Forge World thing, so they had to be included at some point. And they had some pretty fun models and upgrade kits, I will admit. Chest pieces, shoulder pads, weapons, jump packs, and even a Vanguard Veterans kit. But I kind of want to make a small aside, as that's not the thing that drew my eye in the most. When I was but a wee lad and first getting into the hobby, I did this thing where I would go onto the website of Forge World once I figured it out, find a mini for a faction that I was interested in, and then look up their stats on Battlescribe. Yeah, it was really fun, and it was an interesting way of me learning new rules. The first Marines I ever saw that were loyalist were the Chapter Master miniatures for the Red Scorpions, Carib Cullen, which, yes, I said models, he has too. as his story progresses, he starts in Terminator armor as Carib Cullen, but then you have his second model of him in a Leviathan Siege Dreadnought known as Carib Cullen the Risen, which always stuck with me, mostly because he had a special rule. I cannot remember the exact specific name of it. I couldn't be arsed to look it up, but trust me, it's real. You can look it up yourself. Basically, the loadout of this miniature was that he was a Leviathan Siege Dreadnought, with one arm being a twin-linked assault cannon and the other being a Dreadnought combat claw with a built-in heavy bolter. This ability was something you could do once per game, where in melee you can roll to hit once, grab a single individual model from a unit, and then mag dump the heavy bolter into it while you're grabbing it, doing mortal wounds in 8th edition and something else a little less overwhelming in 7th edition. After that, the heavy bolter couldn't be used for the rest of the game, which I always thought was really cool, and it was a very fluffy touch because he ran out of ammunition blowing up one specific guy. But that's kind of all I got, actually. I like the Red Scorpions. I think they are a really fun chapter, and I want to cover them later, as I have only just scratched the surface. I think I'm going to do an entire video about the chapters of the Siege of Rax, and then cover the Siege of Rax a little bit more myself. But with that in mind, what do you all think? Think they're cool? Think they're not cool? Let me know in the comments. And if you ask enough, I might do your favorite chapter or favorite topic at some point, if you spam me enough, I guess. Also, remember to like and subscribe, as we have a goal now. Special thanks to my channel members for supporting me, and if you want to support me as well as gain access to additional or early content, then become a channel member today. Thanks once again for watching, and before I go, can we please bring back the fucking Red Scorpion kits, please? If you can bring back the goddamn Orc Biggins kit for the old world, we can bring these assholes back at least. I love the Red Scorpion Vanguard vets. They're so cool. Okay?